One German rifle fires one round, and one American soldier drops. France, summer of 1944. The rest of his squad does what instinct tells every human being to do under fire. They hit the ground and they freeze. The War Department's own training pamphlet, printed for every officer in the army, records what happened next in 8 words. Consequently, they were picked off one by one. One rifle, one round at a time. An entire squad, dying in a field because nobody could answer the only question that mattered. Where is he? This is the story of how the United States Army learned to answer that question. In the hedgerows of Normandy, in shattered French towns, and in a forest on the German border that turned the whole lesson upside down. It is a story told in the Army's own manuals and battle reports. And it begins with an embarrassing fact. On D-Day, the greatest invasion force in history landed in France with a counter-sniper doctrine that was 4 months old. Field Manual 2175. Scouting, patrolling, and sniping. Issued the 6th of February, 1944. The first dedicated sniping manual the United States Army had ever published. The men who waded ashore in June had paper doctrine and no program. The Germans that they were walking toward had something else. In the German army, the telescopic rifle went to the best marksman in the company, regardless of rank, and carrying one was treated as an honor. A German training document, translated and circulated by American military intelligence in 1943, laid out the philosophy. Snipers positioned away from their own squads, doubling as observers, ranging targets patiently, keeping up what the document called continuous fire on the defensive, to harass and to break morale. And in Normandy, German riflemen were given one more order, which the American troops discovered the hard way: stay behind. The War Department's Normandy report states it flatly. Some of their snipers stayed hidden for 2 to 5 days after a position had been taken, and then popped up suddenly to take the shot for which they had been waiting. Some left firecrackers on slow-burning fuses in their old positions, so that abandoned foxholes kept making gunfire noises while the shooter worked from somewhere else. Their priority targets, in the report's words, were profitable ones: leaders, radio men, and tank commanders, so many that the pamphlet warns tank crews flatly: keep buttoned up. That was the enemy. What made him nearly invisible was the ground itself. The Normandy bocage was a chessboard of tiny fields walled in by hedgerows, earthen banks topped with dense brush, one field blind to the next. A regimental commander's report from those weeks records numerous snipers located in trees, houses, and towers, woven into hedgerow defenses built on dug-in machine guns and pre-registered mortars. Ernie Pyle, perhaps the most widely read American reporter of the war, wrote from Normandy that the Germans put snipers in the trees and dug trenches behind the hedgerows roofed with timber, where artillery could barely reach them. There were no safe rear areas. On the night of D-Day itself, the official history of Omaha Beach records that German riflemen kept reappearing on bluffs that had already been cleared, and that the gunners of the 7th Field Artillery Battalion took so much sniper fire that the artillerymen finally organized their own infantry attack up the bluff to clear it themselves. Cannon crews, fighting as riflemen on Day 2 of the liberation of Europe. 2 days later at Grand Camp, with snipers in the town still resisting, 2nd Lieutenant Norvin Nathan drove his platoon through to the West End anyway and forced a pillbox to surrender. That was the problem. Now, drill by drill, here is the answer the American Army built. It starts with your ears. A rifle shot in the field is not one sound, it is two. A bullet moving faster than sound drags a sharp crack through the air as it passes you. The duller boom of the muzzle itself, the thump, arrives afterward, trundling along at the mere speed of sound. Soldiers learned, formally in training and brutally by survival, to read those two sounds. The crack tells you that you are being shot at. The thump tells you where from. Face the thump and you are facing the shooter. Count the gap between crack and thump and you have his range. A full second between crack and thump put the shooter somewhere around 600 meters out. Half a second, about 300. The Army's new manual made sound reading a formal training step, requiring men to learn identifying and locating sounds, including those of weapons. It was never magic, and the hedgerows made it harder, bouncing echoes off the banks until the thump seemed to come from 3 directions at once. But it turned a supernatural event, a comrade dying from nowhere, back into physics. The shot became information, the first half of an answer to the only question that mattered. Where is he? Ears gave the direction. Eyes had to find the man. Then come the eyes, and here the Army pulled a clever trick. Its own sniping manual taught American snipers how to hide, and every rule for hiding, read backward, is a rule for finding. The manual warns the sniper that his muzzle blast kicks up dust and betrays him, so the counter-sniper watches for a puff of dust in a dry lane. It warns him never to let the barrel protrude from cover, so the observer looks for one straight line in a world of curves. It forbids smoking in the hide, forbids the skyline, forbids fresh tracks into the position, and every prohibition is a clue. American units formalized the watching itself. 2-man observation posts, 1 man on the telescope and 1 on binoculars, swapping roles every 15 or 20 minutes, because the manual is blunt that a strained eye stops seeing. Sectors were cut into numbered boxes on a range card, so a spotter could call a target in one breath. Range 400. Left center of subsector 2. Rifleman at base of tree. The men in those posts were hunting exactly the giveaways their own training would have warned them against. It takes a sniper's education to catch a sniper's mistake. And when watching was not enough, you made him fire. Allied intelligence circulated a translated study of Finnish sniper craft, the masters of the trade, and it reads like a manual for haunted houses. The sniper's mate raises a helmet above the parapet, and somewhere out there a German finishes the thought and squeezes the trigger, and now his position is burned. A team dresses a full dummy and walks it back and forth along a trench. A sniper puts a helmet in one firing slit visibly, and then shoots from a different slit entirely. The same study records what patients cost in these duels. A shooter who stayed on his aim a few seconds too long had his rifle shot to pieces in his hands by a second sniper he never saw. The rule of the duel was simple and absolute. Whoever moves first, dies first. Most engagements, the study notes, happened between 200 and 400 yards, close enough that a single glint of glass or twitch of a branch settled the argument forever. And the sniper who lost a duel but lived, who came out with his hands up, faced the one question no manual would put in print. It gets answered before this story ends. Listening, watching, baiting. These were the crafts, but the distinctly American answer to the sniper problem was none of them. It was volume. Ernie Pyle described it from the hedgerows in August of 1944. The alternative, he wrote, is to keep shooting constantly at the hedgerows, pinning the Germans into their holes while the infantry sneaks up on them. The Army's hedgerow studies called it reconnaissance by fire, and the standing manual made it doctrine for clearing woods. Patrols moved in paired 2-man teams, one moving while one covered, and the manual's instruction for any suspect cover is one of the least ambiguous sentences the Army ever printed. Every possible hiding place must be fired into or bayoneted. The same manual carries a warning. One tree may conceal more than one sniper. The fact that a sniper has just been shot out of a tree does not mean the tree is empty. That frozen squad became the negative example taught to replacements. When the shot comes, wounded men play dead. Everyone else moves, returns fire, and a designated element goes sniper hunting while the mission continues. Because a stationary squad is not taking cover. It is queuing. But some snipers could not be dug out with a rifle. For them, America sent machines. On paper, it is absurd overkill, until you remember the arithmetic of the frozen squad. In one town fighting report, tanks followed each company down the street specifically to take care of snipers. Outside Fouqueville in Normandy, a Signal Corps photographer captured an anti-tank gun crew firing their cannon at one hidden rifleman in a building. In Italy, forward observers dealing with snipers in a stone farmhouse walked 50 rounds of observed high explosive fire into it from 4.2-inch mortars. And then, in the report's words, 40 rounds of white phosphorus poured into the debris eliminated the snipers. Church steeples, the best sniper posts in any European town, simply stopped being treated as architecture. Standing procedure in one report: destroy such observation posts with artillery before the troops enter the streets, and keep them under machine gun fire until patrols finish the job. To a viewer 80 years later, it can look like a cannon hunting a mouse. To the men on the street, the mathematics were clean. One shell was cheaper than one more rifleman, every single time. The army was also, quietly and improvisationally, building snipers of its own. The rifle was a stopgap. The M1903A4, a First World War pattern bolt gun fitted with a slender 2.5 power scope, ordered by the tens of thousands because it was what could be produced fast. The men who carried it fixed its faults with fieldcraft. One infantry colonel, H.E. Fuller, test-fired every scoped rifle in his regiment, discovered that no two sights adjusted alike, and had each rifle's personal correction table typed out, pasted to the stock, and sealed under shellac so that if the sniper died, the rifle's knowledge survived him. A company commander in Italy, Captain Robert Gates, wrote up the organizational fix: take the top 20% of marksmen in each platoon and build at least 2 3-man sniper teams, each with a scoped rifle and a pair of binoculars. This was Overwatch, the counter-sniper's chess move, your patient rifleman watching the ground where his patient rifleman must be. What that duty cost is preserved in the account of a British sniper sergeant in Normandy, Harry Furness, who took a snapshot at some 600 yards on a German officer beside a staff car and hit him. The response was not another rifle. It was mortars, and then the flat crack of 88mm guns, and Furness was twice blown out of his hide by the barrage before he crawled away. Kill a sniper, and men muttered. Kill an officer, and the whole German line answered. Put all of it together, and by midsummer the drill worked, and there is a place where you can watch it work. Near Vierville, above Omaha Beach, a German rifleman in a farmhouse was holding up an advance. A Signal Corps camera team photographed what happened next, frame by frame. A platoon from one of the segregated black units the army still kept separate even as it depended on them, led by Captain Samuel Broussard of Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, surrounds the building exactly the way the manual draws it. Weapons covering the walls, one element holding the sniper's attention at the front, while the others close from the flanks. Another photograph from those beachhead days shows Technical Sergeant Joseph Self of Harriman, Tennessee, standing over a dead German sniper who had, the caption records, held up an Allied advance until he was picked off by members of a black assault unit. And for the one-man version, there is Sergeant James Logan of Texas at Salerno, who ended his duel with a sniper in a house by shooting the lock off the door, kicking it in, and shooting the man as he came down the stairs. He received the Medal of Honor. None of these are movie scenes. Every one is a caption, a citation, or a report, written down at the time. The drills were boring and teachable, and by the autumn of 1944, they were second nature. Then the army walked into the Hürtgen Forest, and the forest did not care. The Hürtgen, on the German border, was 50 square miles of dark pine plantation, and it turned the whole lesson upside down. The trees that had hidden German snipers in Normandy now also detonated German artillery shells overhead, spraying wood and steel downward into men who had been taught that hitting the ground was safety. visibility shrank to yards. The giveaways that eyes could catch in a hedgerow lane vanished in perpetual pine twilight. Every rule for hiding, read backward, is a rule for finding. And in the pines there was nothing left to read. Along the fire breaks, an American regimental history records the continued pattering of sniper fire, a phrase so worn down it sounds like weather. The 22nd Infantry Regiment went into those woods and took 2,773 casualties in 18 days, roughly 85% of its strength. Rifle companies shrank from 160 men to under 90 in a week. The craft had not failed exactly. Men still read the crack and thump, still baited, still buried suspect ground in fire. But the counter-sniper war was never a solved problem, only a managed one. And the Hürtgen is the proof. The same drills that tamed the hedgerows could only ration the dying in the pines. Which leaves the part of this story that the training pamphlets do not cover, and honesty requires it. American and British troops hated snipers with a specific, personal hatred they did not extend to machine gunners or artillerymen who killed far more of them. A man who waited days to shoot one soldier through the head felt, to the infantry, less like a combatant than a murderer. Ernie Pyle wrote that sniping is recognized as a legitimate means of warfare, and yet there is something sneaking about it that outrages the American sense of fairness. What that outrage did to captured snipers was recorded by the men themselves. Sergeant Furness, the British sniper, stated after the war that snipers on both sides, if captured, were shot on the spot without ceremony. And the diary of General Omar Bradley's own aide, from Normandy in June of 1944, preserves the general's attitude in his staff's own words. Brad says he will not take action against anyone that decides to treat a sniper a little more roughly than they are being treated at present. That is a documented sentence about summary killing, tolerated at the top of the American Army. It was not the whole story. A Signal Corps photograph from Belfort in November of 1944 shows a whole group of captured German snipers being marched alive through the streets. Prisoners like any others, and the official histories record bypassed riflemen surrendering by the hundred. Execution was never policy. It was mood and luck, and which squad caught you, and how many of their friends you had killed that morning. Both facts are true at once. So how did the Americans find German snipers before the second shot? Not with a secret, and not with a hero. With ears trained to split one sound into two, and tired eyes rotated every 15 or 20 minutes across numbered boxes of landscape, with a helmet on a stick and the patience to wait for the trigger pull that burned a hiding place forever. And above all, with the least romantic weapon in the arsenal: volume. The tank behind every company, the shell through the steeple, the standing order that every possible hiding place must be fired into. The Germans bet on the perfect, patient individual. The Americans bet on a set of drills that any scared 19-year-old replacement could learn in a week. And the drills won the summer, even if no drill could win the Hürtgen. Remember the squad from the beginning, flattened in a Normandy field, dying one by one because they froze. The army wrote them into a pamphlet so that their mistake would be the last thing about them to die. By the time the next winter came, when the single shot cracked across a field, the men did not freeze. They faced the thump. They counted the gap. They knew, within a breath, where he was. And somewhere out ahead of them, a man in a tree who had been promised he was invisible discovered that 4 months of paper doctrine had grown into a counter-sniper system as ruthless as any the war produced. This has been Nick's World War II archive. There is another one on the channel, the Finnish farmer credited with more than 500 kills in a single winter without a scope, and what it finally took to stop him. If you want the craft told straight from the record, subscribe.